Hi, Fenville families. It's Mrs. DeRue. Hope you're enjoying your time off best we can. Yesterday when we were reading about Hank, him and Papa Pete were in the kind of backyard of their apartment building playing catch, and Hank discovered that he was really pretty good. And he thinks it's because of those special socks that he has on, his sister Emily's socks. Well, Ashley saw him pitching, and she thought, whoa, I want him on my team. So now let's find out if he decides to actually do that or not. While we ate our crunchy dills that afternoon, Papa Pete tried to talk me into pitching for the yellow team. I said no. With or without monkey socks, a guy knows his limits. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I have learning challenges. We remember that from the first book, right? Certain things in school are really hard for me, like reading, math, and spelling, and certain things out of school are hard for me too, like throwing and catching. There are so many things to concentrate on that my mind just sort of goes blank. My mind and my hands don't seem to like each other, and they sure don't listen to each other. I'm not bad at all sports. My best sport is archery, which I did at camp last summer. I even won a master archer pin for hitting 10 bullseyes in a row. Too bad I don't live in Robin Hood's time. I would have been such a cool dude running around with all those green tights, shooting off my bow and arrow to protect people. Cool dudes with bows and arrows aren't too welcome on the Upper West Side of Manhattan these days. After Papa Pete left, I went to my room to study for my social studies test. I was lying on my bunk bed with my headphones on and my book on Hopi Indians open next to me. There was a really interesting picture of the oldest house in America that was built for the chief of the Hopi over 1,000 years ago. I stared at the picture, thinking about all the things they didn't have way back then. Toilets, skateboards, striped toothpaste, cell phones, Pop-Tarts. Of course, even if they did have Pop-Tarts, they couldn't have eaten them because they didn't have toasters either. Hank! How many times do I have to call you? I could hear my dad yelling through the headphones. He tapped me on the shoulder, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. Dad, don't do that. You scared me. I've been calling you for the last 5 minutes, he said. I was studying. With headphones on, he said. You shouldn't be listening to music while you're studying. How many times do I have to tell you that? I'm not listening to music, I said. Here, listen for yourself. I handed my dad the earphones and he put them on. What's this? He asked. It's Dr. Berger reading from our social studies book. Dr. Berger is the learning specialist at my school, and she works with me sometimes to figure out how I can best study my way. She's really nice and doesn't think I'm even a little bit stupid. She recorded some Hopi facts for me to listen to, I told my dad. She thinks maybe they'll stick in my head better if I listen to them while I'm looking at the book. Sounds like that would be more confusing, my dad said. If the TV is on when I'm doing a crossword puzzle, I can't concentrate on either one of them. Well, it's working for me, Dad, I said. I know so much about the Hopi that I didn't know 10 minutes ago. Like, did you know that? Oh, save it for the table, Dad interrupted. Dinner's ready. Well, what are we having? I always ask that question with a little bit of fear, and I have good reason for that. My mom is what you'd call an experimental cooker. At her deli, the Crunchy Pickle, her goal is to bring lunch meats into the 21st century. So instead of making salami and corned beef the regular way, she makes them out of tofu and soy and a bunch of other low-fat, low-taste things. At home, our kitchen is her science lab. She'll whip up a leek and soy milk souffle at the drop of a hat and then throw in a side of mock tuna with bean sprouts just for fun. Most of her dishes taste like what I imagine paper tastes like. Ew, sounds disgusting. Well, it looks like lasagna, my dad whispered, but I don't know what Mom has planted under the top layer of the noodle. I do know this. The noodles are made of wheatgrass. Do we have to mow them before we eat them, I asked. That made my dad laugh, which is not something that happens every day or even every week. We sat down at the dining room table, which is actually the part of the living room that we call the dining room. It was the 5 of us Zipzers. That would be my mom, the lovely Randy Zipzer, my dad, Stan, my 9-year-old sister, Emily, and let's not forget her not-so-lovely iguana, Catherine. Hank doesn't like Catherine, does he? Catherine was wrapped around Emily's neck like a scaly scarf. I don't usually love it when Catherine joins us for meals. First of all, looking at a scaly face while you're eating doesn't do much for the old appetite. And second of all, she has this long gray tongue that shoots out onto your plate and steals the best part of your dinner. If there is a best part, that is. Doesn't sound like Hank's dinner is very exciting. My mom cut into her green lasagna experiment and put a huge helping the size of Montana on my plate. "Dig in, everyone," she said with a big smile. She looked so happy with her creation. I dug in. My fork went in and found what was buried under the wheatgrass noodle. I don't know what it is, but let me just say this. Whatever it was made the wheatgrass noodle look delicious by comparison. It was dark brown with flecks of black, and it was oozing. "What is this, Mom?" I asked. I was afraid of the answer. Very afraid. "Oh, well, mushroom puree with crushed blueberries," she answered. "Taste it, honey." All eyes were on me. I put some of the mushroom puree on my fork, and I shoved it in my mouth quickly. I found that if you don't breathe while chewing, you don't actually really taste what's in your mouth. I didn't breathe. I chewed and swallowed and took a big gulp of milk. Then I smiled at my mom, who was waiting for my comment. "Wow," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. "Wow, wow, wow." "Oh, I knew you'd like it," Mom smiled. I looked over at Catherine, and when my mom wasn't looking, I slipped her a big bite of the lasagna. She shot her long tongue out, and faster than you could say, "I'm going to barf now," her tongue sprang back into her mouth, and she buried her head in Emily's hair. I looked under the table for Cheerio. "I hate to do this to you, boy," I whispered, "but I'm a desperate man." I held the bite of lasagna in my hand and slipped it under the table. Cheerio took one sniff and started spinning around in circles. He actually spun himself out from under the table, across the living room, and over to the front door. He wanted out, and I didn't really blame him. "So, Hank, how's your studying going?" my mom asked. "Great, Mom. My brain is getting so full of information about the Hopi." "It doesn't take much to fill up your pea brain," said Emily. She's really smart, the total opposite of me, but I wasn't going to let her get away with that remark. "Hey, Emily," I said, "I'll bet you don't know how many kinds of corn the Hopi Indians grew." "7, she said in her Miss Know-It-All voice. "Nope, 24, I answered. It's not often I know something that Emily doesn't, and so I went in for the kill. "I bet you don't know what a kiva is," I grilled her. "Well, duh, it's a chocolate bar from Switzerland," she said. "Hey, so close yet so far," I said. "It's an underground room that you can only get to by a ladder where the Hopi builds fires and had their religious ceremonies and sweated a lot." "Well, that's great, Hank." Emily made a face at me. "Now, can we talk about something interesting, like the digestive system of a gecko?" Emily is a major reptile person, as if you couldn't tell. "Emily, let Hank tell us about the Hopi tribe," my mother said. "He's doing such a nice job studying for his test tomorrow." "I didn't know you could learn so much just listening to a tape," I said. "Like, did you know that the Hopi think of themselves as caretakers of the earth? They believe you can't own the land, but you have to share it with everybody. And they made the dolls called kachinas, and they use them to pray for rain and other things they need." "Well, who doesn't know about kachinas?" Emily said. "Oh, really? Then what kind of wood are they made out of?" I said. "I know," Emily answered. "I'm just not in the mood to say." Do you think she really knows? Me either. "As if cottonwood was right on the tip of your tongue," I said. "Honestly, Hank, you learned 3 little facts and you think you're so smart," Emily said. "Those of us who are going to be on the Brainbuster team in the Olympiad have to know a million things like that." Everyone stopped eating and looked at me. "Sweetheart, I didn't know you had been chosen for the Brainbuster team, my dad said. He gave her a big kiss on the cheek, barely missing Catherine, who stuck her snout out to get in on the action. Well, my teacher strongly suggests that I lead the blue team to victory by becoming a brainbuster, Emily said, glancing over at me with a smarty pants look. I was the first third grader they asked. My dad smiled so big you could see that the wheatgrass had gotten stuck between almost every tooth. Oh, yeah? Well, I have some Olympiad news myself, I said. Before I even knew what I was coming out of my mouth, I said, I'm going to pitch for the yellow softball team. Are you kidding me? That's Ashley's team. I was? I thought to myself, Hank Zipzer, stop your mouth. Stop it right now. My mouth wasn't listening, though, and I went right on. Yeah, Ashley and Frankie were practically begging me today. They saw me throwing with Papa Pete in the courtyard, and I was on fire. My dad picked up his glass of water with lemon wedges and held it up. Here's to my Olympians, he said, and took a big gulp. Oh, this pitching thing, that's a very exciting change for you, isn't it? Said my mom. I never missed the center of Papa Pete's glove. I was having a very lucky day, I said, taking a swig of my milk. Oh, well, speaking about lucky, Emily said. Mom, remind me to make sure I wear my lucky monkey socks on Tuesday for the Olympiad. I nearly choked on my milk. Did she just say what I think she said? What do they look like? I asked. The red socks with the pink monkey stitched on them, Emily said. They always bring me luck. I wore them when I got 100% plus 10 extra credit points on my math test. And I wore them when I got the solo part at the winter sing. And I didn't even hear the rest of what she said. All I could do was look very slowly so that no one would notice down at my feet, which were covered in my sister's lucky monkey socks. Maybe they really were the reason I could suddenly pitch. No, couldn't be. No way. What do you think? Do you think Emily's socks are lucky? Do you think Hank will give them back? We'll have to find out tomorrow. So, your challenge for today is to make a paper airplane and see how far you can throw it. Good luck. Bye.